Hello there, you beautiful soul. Welcome back to another Culture Talk segment with Rebecca Munoz, your host and founder of Cultured Society. If you have not had the opportunity to tune into these so inspirational conversations, I invite you to tap into the playlists that are on this channel and on the aculturedsociety.com blog. You will be blown away by all the panel of guests that have joined me thus far to talk about culture, life philosophies, experiences, and all things holistic. So, Cultured Society is here to unite the colorful souls that walk through these doors. We are here to unconditionally love every aspect of your brilliant being, extending love, compassion, empathy, understanding, and grace, consistently offering multicultural views, higher perspectives, and holistic ways of living. We are here to develop your mind through creativity and multidimensional ways of thinking, teaching you ways to be mindful and kind while you consistently lead through your life fearlessly, gifting you tools that will allow you to give and think freely, leaving you with no choice but to release everything that is limiting you from being a divine and abundant human being. So today, I invite you to leave the past in the past. It's time to create a new path. Today is a new day. You are a new you. Every day is a day to recreate what your mind believes to be true. And so today, my beautiful guest is Amee Bee, coming from Chicago, Illinois. Amee and I have had the opportunity to stay connected now for over 15 years. In fact, we went to an art school in Chicago together. And through the years and through our own personal journeys, we've had the opportunity to grow individually as well as come together in a space where we can collaborate and share each other's experiences. And I am so inspired by Amee because she is definitely a person who is operating in her own personal truth and her purpose. So we are here to share her life philosophies and experiences today through the realm that she's operating in. So Amee means unconditional love in Sanskrit. Amee Bee is an artist, a poet, born in America of Indian descent, inspired by love. She has bright blue eyes and slender artistic hands, which are rare features for Indian culture. She never painted in her life until a sweet friend looked at her hands and told her to pursue art and poetry. Without professional lessons in art or poetry, she began to paint one cold January morning in 2017. Art, travel, and new experiences for Amee Bee are the best outlets for self-discovery, self-acceptance, and for her to stay in an inspired state of being. By sharing her experiences, she hopes it inspires you to be in love or do art too. Amee Bee adores the quirkiness of Marc Jacobs' personality, wit and charm of the late Kate Spade, passion of Vincent Van Gogh, just as much as the chill vibes of Buddha and love poems of Rumi. Amee aims to find beauty in what's around her and be appreciative of what she has. It's her secret to happiness. Art, poetry, and stories are what translates from it. By sharing, she hopes you too experience the love and magic within you. And with this, I introduce the beautiful Amee Bee to this amazing platform. Thank you so much for joining me today, Amee.
Aw, thank you. It's such a pleasure. We have so much fun when we interact and when we connect. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So if you have not had, again, the opportunity to join us on these conversations have been so unique and so divine and definitely divinely orchestrated by our creator. I have come up with a series of questions that are the same for every single guest that comes through these doors. And what's very inspiring is that although I believe that we are all a part of one body, I also believe that we are all very uniquely designed and we have our own specific DNA code that we were brought here to Earth to fulfill. And so, if you believe that you are yet not walking in your purpose, I encourage you to just tune into these conversations with an open mind. My my goal is to really inspire you to tap into your own inner magic. And I know that Amee's goal is that as well with the work that she does. And so I came up with a series of questions that are very personal because oftentimes we're not really talking about life philosophies and experiences on a different level. And so, again, our goal here is just to tap into the psyche of the guest that's joining us today so that you may be inspired to really ask yourself those same questions and tune into what you're being asked to do for your own divine purpose so that you can impact the people around you, which is the goal every single day. So with this, I introduce this Culture Talks conversation with the first question. What is your life's philosophy, Amee?
My life's philosophy is I listen to serendipity. I'm like Winnie the Pooh looking for love the way he looks for honey. And and so that's kind of how I live my life. It wasn't always. Like I feel like society and culture teaches us to always look for an outcome, fulfill expectations, all of these things. Like it's like this perpetual cycle that just doesn't end, and it keeps going and it keeps going, and eventually it catches up, and when it catches up it affects our health, it affects us mentally, physically, emotionally, in all the ways. And the more you ignore it, um, the more sorry about that.
Okay.
um, have a little cough, but I'm grateful for it because I fell off my wheel and it gets me back on again. But um, I I feel like it catches up to us, and so and is what you're kind of experiencing too, or your study right now is surrendering, and and that's where I'm at also because but but as you know, we don't start from there. You just don't. You get put into life circumstances that really shake you up, and the only choice sometimes that you have is appreciation, because it would feel, or it would be too heavy to experience anything else. and and I know this philosophy isn't the case for everybody, because everybody has different goals. And my belief is very similar to yours, where I believe we're a giant soul, and the soul is love. And every time we feel like, I think everyone in the world, I don't think there's a person that hasn't experienced loneliness.
Mhm.
And I don't think there's a person that's ever experienced that ache. And I think a lot of times people try to like just stuff that ache, or they're like, well, maybe if I be like this person, or maybe if I be like that person, if I do this, if I follow this blueprint, I'll find happiness, or I'll meet whatever goal or expectation I have. Okay, some people meet it, some people make it, and then what? And then what? Then you're on to the next goal and the next expectation, and it keeps going. But then you see that you get it, but you see that you're happy for a second, but it's not that long lasting joy that we want, that blissful joy that comes from inside and within. And it's so interesting right now because I'm a couple weeks new to Clubhouse, and I'm enjoying it so much because I get to interact and meet kindred spirits like you. And but it's interesting because there are some rooms on there where they talk about what is authenticity, or if you're a genuine and authentic person, come to this group. And that made me giggle because a lot of authentic people are so in love with whatever they're interested in. They're okay with like being and acting in a way that um that isn't people pleasing, or that isn't trying to fit into a box. They're accepting their limitations and working with what they have, and things like that. I feel like every struggle polishes us. Like we're like rough little diamonds, and every time we get scuffed or something, it's up to us to find like the beauty in it. And it's up to us to see, okay, now where can I go? And I know you're very similar. So it's like when I had a job where social media was very new, I had so many limitations, but it was that spirit of optimism where it was like, okay, I'm given this box, but what can I do with it? What what can I do with it? What can I create with it or from it? And each time the box would get smaller and smaller, but it was like that little spark of optimism of, okay, what's to come? And I think practicing non-judgment has been helpful. Like, come on, we're human. We're not perfect at it. It's like the mind can't help but to intellectualize something. So it's like, it's just a habit where it's like, okay, you pick something up, and like this bottle, for instance, some people will say, oh, a dirty bottle, but I'll see it and I'll be like, oh, yellow paint. And so it depends. It's kind of like a playful thing. So my philosophy and how I operate from the inside has been shaped by all of these different experiences, where eventually, even with like health situations where it's like that little glimmer of light or that optimism of, okay, what can I do with what I have, and what can we create? Like, there are some days where I'm like, yeah, I want to make this, but a lot of times I'm just watching magic happen. Like, I'm just watching things just come together. And when we're open to receive in that manner, it's like all this magical stuff just begins to happen. All of these like coincidences and synchronicities. So, yeah, bringing it back to Winnie the Pooh, it's that's just how I am.
Oh, and I admire and appreciate that so much about you, Ami, because that is one of the most challenging things to do, especially as human beings, is surrendering and allowing those serendipitous moments to allow us to just create something so magical, and to even be in the state of flow where those where abundance can continue. Because I like to say that we're surrounded by abundance, and abundance is defined so differently by a lot of our people in society, because abundance is usually defined by material possessions, by money, when in reality, yes, money is so important and it really does make the world go round. But what I like to say abundance is really the state of being, the ability to wake up every morning and have breath, right? To be able to appreciate the birds that are that are singing to us, you know, the magic of the trees. And it sounds so um like people are just like, do you live in the fantasy world? Like, are you living in a fantasy?
Right? It's like, yeah, like a Disney princess, why not? It's
But it's when, I mean, when you start to really appreciate the small things that this world has to offer, all the magic that this world has to offer, it really does create an opportunity to create a lot of the material stuff that we need in order for us to be able to continue to create. And so you had mentioned earlier when I asked you this question that it hasn't always been like this. So how has that philosophy evolved for you through the years?
I would say, so back, like, how can I say this in the most concise way possible? So I'll just share a little bit of my past experiences where I come from a traditional Indian family. I'm first generation American. My parents came here with when they had like a few dollars in their pockets. And so there's always been like that immigrant insecurity with like money, and it's always been like, okay, you're going to get security if you do this, if you're going to follow this, if you do all that, then you're going to be happy. Or maybe they didn't even outright saying happy, but they felt like, and they mean well, like they mean well because um yeah, money does bring a level of comfort for people. And so, but it's interesting because I feel like growing up in a lot of societies, they don't address like the internal manner, and like they don't address finding and appreciating now. And so it's like I would chase so much. I would force so much. And like I'm I'm lucky to be a very creative person, and I know you are too, where it's like ideas come left and right and they come, you're like, "Oh, I want to do this, I want to do that." And then some of them just die. And then and some of them you're attached to and they die, and it's like you're grieving them like they're a person. Um all of these different experiences. And so especially around 2014 through 2017ish, or maybe 2015 through 2017ish, I had my own personal lockdown. Like it was very intense. It was like I didn't have money, I didn't have a car, I couldn't go anywhere at that time. A lot of my relationships and friendships I would have had with people kind of dwindled a little bit. And like I saw it as my the way I see it now is my life is like a garden. The universe was plucking what wasn't serving me and making space and room. But at that time, and thank God for my boyfriend, I love him to pieces. Like I'm the best version of myself because I have a wonderful, loving partner. Um, but I had him, and at the same time, I was attached to this ideal of being an independent woman, making my own money, making my own living, blah, blah, blah. And at that time, I was in the social media digital marketing space. And when I was in the social media digital marketing space, I had a talent and a knack for it. But the universe is sort of like, that's just not your role right now. Like, there's a point where I was so depressed where I couldn't get out of bed, and like my boyfriend was like genuinely concerned about me. Um, but then when I kind of let go of that ideal and slowly started appreciating what I had, and when I had to accept, hey, this is your circumstance. Like I've w- I've spent a couple years mourning this, depressing this, that okay, so I can't do what I want and it's not working. And truth be told, too, funny enough, around 2015 or something, the largest amount of money I had in my bank account was like 18 grand because I was doing a project for um, a company, and I had a partner at that time for social media, and I saw it didn't have happiness or that fulfillment. And of course I had to share it with the partner I was working on. And funny enough, it was like all that money didn't bring joy. Instead, it brought like an annoying client where I wound up overworking anyway. And it was just so interesting because when I saw that, the mind the mind is so attached to that insecurity of, okay, I have to do this, I have to earn that, but I wasn't paying attention to the inner stuff. Like I was putting the cart before the horse. And that's what a lot of people do. And so um after I experienced that first and then that depression and then um 2017, as you read, um it was suggested I do art. And so I'm like, okay. And even with art, it's what I love about it is after I, and it's been a process of weeding out that insecurity of to make money. I got to do this to earn, to live. But no, it's like doing it because I'm just serving, like doing it without any expectations, doing it because every moment is like a discovery of like where we are inside, what we're doing. It's like a state of listening for me. So it's like sometimes too, like when I am making art, um, and when all these thoughts come up, it's, I feel like it's a blessing wrapped in a curse because it's like all this stuff comes out and you're just like, okay, how are we addressing this? And so when we move past it while we're moving our hands and painting or whatever it is, and like learning not to judge the piece and just be like, okay, it's not done yet. That's what I call it. I call them my becoming phases. I don't call them ugly pieces. I don't call them names. They kind of just appear and be who they want to be. So it's like it's been this whole process of struggling, and because I'm so in the moment, it also, where I'm like floating in some idea or some sort of thing in my world, it's it's all changed so much. It's not like now it's like I'm just like in a place and in a space of surrendering. And as I do my craft and stuff, and I'm not art, not craft, because craft, that's what the mind does. It's like picking at it and stuff. Art is just what flows out of you. And so as I'm doing this, it's like um, people are asking me for it and they want to buy it. And that's what I think is so interesting, that like what comes from the heart goes to the heart. And that's what I've been experiencing. And that's like the secret of marketing, where it's like everyone wants love, everyone wants to fulfill that in themselves. And I feel like art is a beautiful way and a beautiful gift to feel someone else's like energy and vibes as inspiration.
That is so true. That is so true. And again, that is one of the hardest things that we are challenged with is the art of really surrendering and listening to what our inner guide is telling us to do, because we're always so consumed by the external noise, what's happening in our society, what everybody else is doing. And even when and I did this too. I mean, I can totally relate to what you're talking about, because even when I transitioned back to New Mexico, it was like this pulling that was talking to me, and I would feel it internally. It was so uncomfortable, and I would fight it because I was like, well, what am I going to do? How am I going to make money? How am I going to pay my bills? Like, what am I, you know what I mean? And so it's just, we're challenged with that every single day, because as creatives, we want to be able to just go with the flow, and other people, our society is telling us that we can't do that. And just like you said, I mean, when you allowed yourself to surrender, people started to ask you for what you are being called to do. And that is definitely the art of being in the state of flow. And when you're being taken care of every step of the way, you're being guided to the people that need to be in your life consistently. I mean, even being removed from the people that don't need to be in your life. And that's coming into the next question, because I think it's so important for us to understand um, the importance of circle of influence, and how our experiences tend to be impacted by that. So how has your upbringing and circle of influence impacted the way that you live and think today?
I think, um, hmm, that's an interesting question. Let me think about that. um, I think it's interesting because I feel like when I was born and as a little child, I feel very lucky that I was very loved. It was like my mom was always so busy working, but I think until I was age 4, I had a lot of cousins and stuff like that that kind of like nurtured me, which I feel, especially for children, like the first 5 years of someone's development is very important because that's their foundation. As I was growing up, these cousins started getting married, going away, and like there is a lot of times where I felt lonely inside. Like it, especially because I was so shy and such a wallflower. Um, and it was like ridiculously shy. And I still am, but I've come a long way with like overcoming it. And I think it's just interesting because even the hardships growing up and stuff like that, I feel like God gave me a gift of optimism or always looking for something positive. And there are times where I felt like I lost it, but then I would get inspired again. But I would say uh, my boyfriend, especially, has been a huge, huge, impactful influence. And like right now, and I feel like I'm very, very nurtured by a lot of women in their 50s. Like a lot of my best friends are in their 50s
Mine too.
and right, they're the best. I I have all kinds of friends in like every age range, and I know you do too, where it's like even little children. And we always feel like we I always feel like I have something to learn from everybody. But I think that loneliness has been really, really important. So I can appreciate loving friends like you, where it's like I have a lot of amazing friends, like like you, and then there's all of these other friends, but I don't have a huge group of friends. Like I
Yeah,
have a lot of friends, but they're like one-on-one relationships in so many different places.
right. Yes, I agree with you. And I think that the older that you get and the more experience that you have, you recognize that your circle of influence is so important to be smaller and smaller, because your energy is so important. And it's really important to be selective of who you surround yourself with, who you're influenced by, who you really give your time to, because at the end of the day, time is energy, and time is our, I mean, it really is essentially our most valuable asset. Our energy is our most valuable asset. And so you have to be very selective aside from your parents, because I think like now in this phase of my life, I didn't understand my parents when I was younger, because we came from such a different, I mean, they were also immigrants coming to the United States with absolutely no money. I mean, they worked really hard for everything that they had. And there was a very big cultural gap, because I was also first generation Mexican American, and my ideals as I got older were very influenced by what society's ideas of success are. But now that I feel like I've kind of gone 360, where I've come back to where I started, and now my parents in their late 60s and 70s, I understand them so much more than ever before. They've become like my best friends. And
Aw,
and with you, like you, I mean, you're such an old soul, and even though we're the same age, it's like we're in our 60s, 70s too, and really have a greater
right?
understanding of what life is all about.
With like a childlike mind, right? Like that's totally where it's at. And it's so interesting, and I loved what you had to say about energy, because I was chit-chatting with my nephew the other day, and he's so adorable and kind and cute, and like it was so funny because like he's like, man, sometimes when I see videos where people do something embarrassing, I feel embarrassed for them. And like it cracked me up because he's such an empath. And right now, he's enjoying like the COVID time because he gets to like be on his own schedule. And when I was chit-chatting with him, he's like, I'm so bored. And I'm like, take advantage of this boredom and pay attention to yourself. Like, s- notice what your energies are and what your vibes are. Like, you saw that video and you felt embarrassed for whoever felt embarrassed. And when you did that, those were not your emotions. You were picking up vibes from someone else. And so it is so important to pay attention to that because I'm very similar where I feel like before my boyfriend, because I've learned a lot, like because he's very stable and centered, it inspires me to be very uh as centered as I can be. And so yeah, as centered as I can be because flow is about being fluid. And so like that balance helps me out. Um, but it's just very important because now I can tell the difference of, oh, these are Ami vibes, these are not Ami vibes. And sometimes I can tell when I am unhappy or upset, but I don't swim in it for so long because sometimes the mind can get very addicted to however it's feeling. Like sometimes like the nature of the mind is it would rather stay the same and it would rather be familiar with uh pain because it's experienced it so much rather than doing working on doing the hard work with noticing and surrendering and evolving to gain long-term happiness.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, we live in a society of instant gratification. We want everything so quick. And you know what? I mean, I'm so open with my experiences because I think it's really important for us to share our own personal story and to share the experiences that we've gone through to evolve to the place that we're in today. And living we're spiritual beings living a human experience, so it's a never ending evolution. So like Ami mentioned earlier, we try to strive for a goal, right? And then when we get there, it's like we're not happy and then we're going to the next. And so it's really important for us to understand that we'll never arrive. We'll never arrive. We're always going to be going through that next, I like to call it an ascension process, where we're always ascending to another level of consciousness. I like to put it that, we are a form of consciousness and that our brains have the capacity, because as a society, we are operating at maybe 10% of our brain, when in reality we have 200 billion cells in our brain. There's so much opportunity for growth. And so, every single day we have the capacity to learn something new, to grow into new skin, because we're always shedding, right? And so when we give ourselves the grace through the process, we're able to go through that process with so much unconditional love and also just surrender, and to know that, we always have the capacity to do something new, but still be in this present moment and appreciating every process that we're going through. And I'm speaking to myself because we're our own worst critic. And I know that I have been hard on myself for so many years, where I'm now just like Ami in the state of surrender, and now really allowing myself to go through the process of flowing and just allowing spirit to guide me to do the things that I'm supposed to be doing to impact, which is why I'm doing this project currently. This is something that I was asked to do, and I had to surrender because I didn't know how it was going to unfold. I didn't know if I was even going to be compensated for it during the process, which is not. I mean, I'm really volunteering my time here, but I know that, and so are the panel of guests that are coming through. But just knowing that we're always being taken care of regardless.
Yeah, and like I love that you're doing that freely without any expectations, because um something my 94-year-old best friend would say is love and appreciation is the only thing that we take with us when we pass. Like we don't take money, we don't take anything here. And like, and on the astral plane, like on the internal planes, it's our intentions are our currency. So it's like you're screwed if you've got bad intentions, like, and things like that. So it's like the importance of just kind of being in surrender and in flow. Karmically, it's just paying things off. And sometimes it's like when we have too many intentions, too many goals, we get caught in this like karmic trap. And like something else that he's said was how spirituality should never be a for profit, because it and when you charge for spirituality, it keeps the bigger blessings that you could be doing just in this world. Like it limits you in this world. Like why be limited in this world when you can get so much more inside? And when you get so much more inside, it makes this outside world effortless. Something that I thought was really amazing and interesting. Yeah. something that I thought was amazing and interesting is I have a cousin in New York who has a pretty high stress level demanding job. And she's been putting in the work to like getting to know herself better inside and like just meditating, eating right, things like that. When in that world, it's just easy to become all consumed with like the people, the things, everything around you. And funny enough, she got a promotion and she got a couple extra hours in the morning to herself. And at first she felt so guilty about it. And I was like, girl, don't feel guilty about it. You just got gifted from the universe to like pay attention to this stuff on the inside. And like, that's what I've been experiencing too. And I'm sure you have also. It's like, that's why when we start surrendering, we start experiencing and we start seeing that we we are always taken care of. We might not get what we want, but we get what we need. And the more we appreciate what we need, a lot of stuff just keeps happening and showing up, similar to when you're talking about abundance. And when you're talking about abundance, it's here right now. And even sometimes too, it's like some people have bad karma where they're just down on their luck. But I still believe like being in really tough situations and stuff, like there's always a literal glimmer of hope. Like there's always some little outlet or door if we look for it. Like when we surrender, it's easier to be like Winnie the Pooh and walk into these doors. But the hard part is letting go. But once that becomes a daily exercise, it becomes helpful. Like we're not perfect at it. We're human. It's like the ocean. When the ocean waves keep coming and going, um, and you've like written your name in it, it washes away. But it's like one of those efforts that you have to keep writing your name in it anyway.
Yes. 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 And I want to go into this next question because we're going to continuously talk about how we really are taken care of, especially when we're doing a line of work that is aligned with our own spirituality and what makes us feel good inside. And I know that you have been doing this work for a long time, and it's been challenging because you've questioned yourself. I've questioned myself through this process numerous times. I know that the self-doubt consistently comes up. It's like the ego mind tries to control.
Yeah.
It tries to control, and spirituality is definitely a place. It's a constant journey, but it's also, it gives us the opportunity to fully surrender to the state of flow and really like allowing the divine to flow through us so that we can do the best, to live out the best version of ourselves and to really make a difference in our, not only in our internal world, but also in our external personal world. Because we don't necessarily have to impact the entire world. But what I like to think of our world is really the vicinities of our energetic space, because we're only one person and we are a part of a complete consciousness. And the world is so big, yet there's like 0 degrees of separation. I mean, you're in Chicago, I'm in New Mexico, and we're having this exchange of energy right now. And it's almost as though we're in that same, even though we're in a different place, we're almost, though we're kind of having similar experiences, which is how we can really exchange this energy this way. But do you believe that your line of work infects, because infection can be such a negative connotation, but do you believe that your work infects our society with positivity? And if so, how so?
Yeah, it's so funny because when I first started this artist journey, and I laugh at it because a lot of times people are like, "You're an artist, you're a poet." And I'm like, I am. Because, like, whenever we start anything new, we feel imposter syndrome. But when I write, but like, we feel imposter syndrome because we're people pleasing instead of just doing it for the sake of doing it, and instead of just appreciating what we're doing. And then we feel imposter syndrome because we put all these expectations and standards on ourselves. And then when we're learning from other people, because yeah, we have to learn, sharpen our pencils however we can. And then, like, all these questions pop up. Is this my work or is this the other person's work? Like, it doesn't feel genuine. But then there comes a time we, where I would just, luckily, thanks to being forgetful, I forget things, and somehow whatever sticks just um, expresses itself through me however it does. And a lot of times, like, I give away a lot of work, and I'm happy to do it. That's my service to the world. Um, and sometimes, like, even when I scribble and stuff like that, people are just like, wow, this is so lovely. There's so much love in it. And I'm like, really? Okay. And it's like, I don't even intend on doing it. And I didn't believe it for so long until until a while later, where I'm like, oh wow, it is. And, like, I think it really struck me, especially with my poems, where people would say, you say things that I don't have the words to say. You express things that I cannot express. And, like, it was such a beautiful thing because people will tell you what you're good at and what you're not. And our job is to, like, just listen to it with a grain of salt. And um and as I saw that, and as I started experiencing that, it's been really fun. Like, it's interesting because I'll show you this little wall behind me. In COVID, I joined this little art group, and it's all these, like, mom and grandmom artists. And so each person, like, there's 9 of us or so. Oops, that one fell off. But we would send each other art. So I made 9 people art, and the 9 people would send me art. And, like, those hearts up there, friends sent them to me without even um telling me about it. Like, it was like a surprise, especially when I was going through sad times. And those pieces woke me up. Like, I was like, what am I crying for? Like, I need to get over this. And that's like the power of, whoops. that's that's like the power of art. That's the power of love. Like, it's more than just the art. It's like the artist. And it was like when my best friend passed away, it's just, I'm gonna miss his physical form a lot. And it's just something I have to get used to and, like, continue to be inspired by. And, like, when that happened, um, I know I could, especially because of COVID, I know that I couldn't visit all my friends that were also mourning his loss. So I would just make art and send it around the world. And that's just like a service I'm happy to do and thankfully funded by my wonderful boyfriend because it's like he's who I learned where serving with like love and devotion without expectation is really, really important if you're on any kind of spiritual path. Like, and I think that's, I don't, and I think while he was alive, I'd think I'd be serving or helping, but I'd always, there's always some sort of expectation that sticks. And now I feel like um, I try to live in a way where I do my best to just serve and be in every aspect of my life, even towards this body, towards my mind, towards friendship, towards everything. And I found that when I live this way, live in surrender, I have more energy and more love to give because it's like love comes from that part in ourselves where it doesn't have any words. It just flows out and it has nothing to do with ego or anything like that. And when we serve and when we're giving out of love without expectation, it's just very, very magical. And I think that's where it's at. Like different things will inspire different people, but for me, it's like love and friendship inspires all my artwork. It's what pulls me to get up and do things, and it's important for me to live a life like that because if I don't live a life like that, I'll be depressed back in my bed, not doing anything again. And so that's what it is for people and friends to like figure out, okay, what is it that um what is it that sparks me to continue and do it even if I wouldn't earn or have or do make a living out of it.
Mhm. I guess this goes into the next question because I know that everybody has a different perspective or perception of what purpose is and what a higher calling is. So, and you've already pretty much answered this question, but I really want you to define what that means for you. So, do you believe that your work that you do every day now is aligned with your calling and higher purpose?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. I feel like for a little bit I had struggled because I had like that whole immigrant, I got to do this for money. And when I would have that, I got to do this for money, it took out the very joy and love and creativity that actually produced a lot of artwork. And and it took a lot of time to let go of that. And like right now too, my boyfriend, because he's he's like he's my logical brain. He's also creative and gets me, but he's in charge of the selling aspect of it. And because our values are the same, we've created a model, and it's not going to be a lucrative um, money model, but it's a model that works for me where it's like I'm not going to sell original art because for me, original art picks whoever it wants to go to. Like I don't pick. I know it sounds silly and goofy, but other creatives know what I mean. Um, but I also want to make people feel special, whoever buy my work. I so we've decided that we're going to do high quality art prints, and we're going to do limited edition and do it in a way where it grows in value. And I think we're going to do them as an NFT as well. So we're looking into that. And so, because, yeah, we want people and friends to feel valuable and special, because people, especially kindred spirits and very loving people, all people are special, but the kindred ones and like people that love are my favorite. And it's it's interesting because I feel like first comes that passion, or that love that pulls you to do something, and then to keep doing it. And then when you keep doing it, then the universe will give you hints how to go about it, and it'll just come into place, and it'll keep becoming bigger. So I've aligned my model in a way where I still feel like I'm serving, and I can still establish and um, make money out of it when it's time, when that's not my end goal.
Again, we are always being taken care of and always being aligned with people that have a similar vision that can help you, because we can say all we want about how we don't do this for the money, we don't do this for the money, but we really have to understand that money is an energy, it's a resource that we use in order for us to be able to create more, because we wouldn't be able to create more without it. And so it's so beautiful to hear you say that you are now creating so that other people can have your art, and they're at the same time rewarding you with that energy and that time to continue to be able to put that out there. Because I know that your intentions, I know that from the bottom of my heart that your intentions are very pure, and it's that person that you've always been. And it comes from a place of humility, it comes from a place of understanding, experience, and also like that's your roots, that's who you are. And I'm really glad to hear that even through the experience of you connecting with your 94-year-old best friend, he really taught you about that. And that, and I'm learning this every single day, because I'm actually back at my roots. In fact, I do this work right now through a space where I'm back in my childhood space. And it's really allowed me the opportunity to kind of go back to my childlike essence, which is essentially where we all want to be, because that gives us the purity, it gives us the creativity, it gives us the place of just, yeah, purity, where we can create from a place of just full inspiration. And it really gives us again the opportunity to connect with people that really have a deeper appreciation for that, and can help us go to the next level, to where we do have that space to be able to give that back to the world, because so many people need it. So many people need the love, so many people need the creativity and the inspiration to be able to operate in that for themselves. Now, how do you stay relevant, unique, and true to who you are as a person?
Um, I've answered that, huh? In a way, I think,
You have, but
yeah,
I like to ask the question anyway, because it gives us going back to that, being very centered and focused on that specific, because you've answered these questions before I've even asked them, but it gives people an
yeah,
understanding of yeah.
yeah, absolutely. It's so funny because being asked that, I'm like, okay, how do I say it concisely? I would say what I I go with the flow. Like I don't do things that are trending. Like that's if you start partaking and participating in this world, it becomes exhausting, and you'll feel like it's taking from you rather than nourishing and inspiring you, because karma, like, karma is one of those things where it's give or take. Business is a transaction. Like, you buy something with money, like there's always some kind of exchange. And for me, when I would get caught up with like, oh, I got to do this because this is trending or this is whatever, I would feel like I'm being rushed in this go, go, go thing. And it would put me um, in a negative state of mind and competition, like all the feelings I didn't want to feel. So I think when people are true to themselves, they're just naturally relevant, and they're just naturally, like, I feel like the universe puts us in circumstances, they like, boundaries that the world puts us on, or circumstances that the world puts us in, are important to read, because that's an outside reflection of what's happening on the inside. And um and so when we're reading that, it's like, okay, what can I do with the circumstance I'm in? And for me, love and friendship, like, I feel like love is timeless. Love is always relevant, and luckily love is my inspiration. And so it's like a great conversation with a friend, or maybe a musician plays something, and because they touch my heart so much, I can't help but paint the experience. It's like not necessarily looking for technique, or looking for, okay, I gotta do this, dot, dot, dot. I'm actually very playful and joyful and fun. I'm not like that 24/7, because I'm very introverted, and I have those days, but it's about listening to ourselves and listening to our moods and our body's energy levels, because if we don't listen to them, at least for me, and if I keep pushing against it, and there's some days where we have to do it, but doing that continuously, then it starts messing with our minds, and getting put we start playing games in this world. And for me, I don't want to play. Like, I just don't want to play those games with the world. Like, I don't want to have a lot of karmic repercussions like I had before. Now it's sort of just like, okay, let's see what's happening. Um and you put in front of me what you want me to do, universe, and it just does. So yeah, if that answers it.
Yes, yes, yes. And that's so good, Ami, because, again, we're so influenced by what's happening externally. And I know that I've been in that place. In fact, these last couple of months have, even though I'm in a more quiet space, I find myself battling with the ego, and I go through numerous ego deaths because we're a constant evolution. And so as we go through different phases, I remember one of the first conversations that I had on this platform was with Asta Melsiute, who also lives in Chicago. She's originally from Lithuania, and she's also in the space of coaching. And she talked about how different levels create new devils, and that every time we're ascending to a different place of consciousness, it's a place that we've never been before. And so our human mind, our ego mind, tries to battle that space. And so we kind of, and it's a place of duality, right? We live in a world filled with duality. We have contrast. And just like you had given the example of the diamond, right? The diamond, when it first went through the process of becoming a diamond, it was originally a piece of coal. And it's gone through a very long, rigorous process of heating, going through the fire, being polished, right? And the longer the process, the more valuable the diamond. And that's kind of our evolutionary experience. And even when we experience a lot of pain, right, there's a reason for that. Our pain is not in vain. The more that we go through, the more karmic lessons that we go through, oftentimes the more it's molding us. And we're not given more than we can handle. But oftentimes, because we're going through that, we think that we're being punished, and that we're never going to reach, that level that of enlightenment where we're going to be content. But when we surrender to that process, it gives us the opportunity to really just allow, like, these things to just build us, to strengthen us, to make us more resilient, and to be true to who we are as individuals versus trying to people please and do it for everybody else. That's where we start to feel out of alignment. And I know that I've been there numerous places. I'm sure you have been there too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And what's interesting about ego is the only way to defeat it is love. And and that's why surrendering is so important, because when we're surrendering, we're we're opting out of the game being caught in duality. And and so when we're opting out and choosing love, all of it happens. My 94-year-old bestie used to say that every single person on this planet has an equal it has half and half of good karma and bad karma. And I think that's been helpful to understand and see, because it's like, if you take a picture and you chop it up in little squares and you pick up the little square, you can't see the whole picture. You're just seeing the little square that you've picked up. And which goes back to, like, believing in one soul, and everyone has an individual mind viewing from their own little window of what they see. And and with that in mind, it's like, we we need the ego. It's like the ego, in a sense, like, it can be a hindrance or it can be an ally. And that's where surrendering and putting love first helps, because my bestie used to say, there's like a Persian quote that he loved that translated as, love is born in the heart of the beloved. And it's like, it goes back to how, like, when, like, a mom loves a child, that unconditional love where it's like, no one can do no harm, no one can do no wrong. And, like, back to what you're saying about our brains, that we only use a limited amount because we put more attention on analysis and intellectualizing things, when analyzing and intellectualizing should be put on the work in front of us, not on people. And it's like, we've used that part of our brain so much, where it's like, we've let it take control over us. And so when we're loving and when we're surrendering, the brain wishes it can recreate that experience of love, but it can't, because love is a soulful thing that created the mind, that created this experience of, like, lover and beloved, like, experiencing I've been very fortunate to experience what true unconditional love feels like. And because I've been so fortunate to experience that, that's what actually helped me to let go more easily. And because it's like paying attention to that loneliness, that pain, that seeking, that love, and like serving unconditionally is where it's at to like defeat it. Because otherwise, like something too that cracks me up is I think it's interesting when people say, I love myself. Like, I laugh at it a little bit because I is ego. And like, um, for this experience of love, that like the whole little soul thing and all of us coming to this planet, we're trying to experience that love to get back to that giant soul, to get back into ourselves instead of being so caught up in this world and all the duties and all of the things. But it's the ego that's what helps us. It's the ego that helps us look inside to see that, you know, there's something more, something is missing. I don't know what's missing, but something is missing. And I think using the ego in a healthy way with going inward is what steers the boat a little bit, because the combination of love pulling you does pull us inside. Like that's where it's at.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you again, you've already answered because you've just said so much in this conversation, and I'm so grateful for it because you've given us a lot of words of encouragement, a lot of words of wisdom, and really allowing us to really have having a deeper understanding of who you are and why you do what you do. But how about you guide us into some daily practices that you implement to stay grounded and connected to yourself? Because you already talked about how you lived some time in isolation and in solitude, but maybe walk us through a day-to-day practice to kind of get you inspired to do the work that you do.
That is such an interesting question. Um, so my Winnie the Pooh self, it's it she doesn't like routine so much. She loves variety. So she has to make it fun. She has to make sure she falls in love with whatever she's doing, whoever she's talking to, because I have a very sensitive body. Like, because if I get mad, if I get angry, my entire body becomes inflamed and I
Mine
react to it.
too. Yes.
Right? It's nuts. But at the same time, it's like, okay, what a great thermometer. But I actually fell off track, but luckily I have this amazing Ayurvedic doctor that she has like this amazing like strong fiery vibes and like confidence, and sometimes it's important, I feel like, to surround ourselves with like various personalities and energy, because as you mentioned, it's like an exchange where she loves talking to me because she comes out so calm and chill, and I'm just like, wow, I needed more fire today. And so with this cough right now, a lot of my attention is on recovering. So I'm I had fallen off my wagon, but how I'm back on track again is in Ayurveda. When you wake up early, like I'm sure you know this already, you wake up early when like the sun rises, you drink a glass of hot water, And then you do breathing exercises. So right now I'm doing the breath of fire and then the alternate nostril breathing and the ujjayi breath, or like the Darth Vader breath. And then after I do that, then I meditate for a little while. Like meditating is very important for me, especially like being sensitive and empathic. Like when we pay attention to our attention and awareness, like for me, it always gets caught up right here. So I have to actively practice to bring my attention behind my eyes. So it's like I don't mess around with like chakra work or healing work or Reiki or any of that, because I've tried all of that. I've done all of that. It exhausted me more than it helped me. Um, even while practicing it, but I didn't know it did till I stopped
Interesting.
doing it.
Uh-huh.
And then so and eating well, like nuts and things, like you know a lot about grounding. Like even talking to you is helping me ground. Like it's it's just it's important. Like so relating it back to like living my life with love and friendship, having exchanges with like friends, vibes, and energies that are delightful and complimenting to me. So that's really important. I pay attention to how I feel, but I would say food wise, like drinking water, taking my vitamins, all of that is really important to always get up and start my day by 10 a.m. And I think that's really, really important, because if we don't do that and if we don't get proper sleep, it throws us off. Like this cough is from being thrown off with forgetting to eat properly and um, getting so involved in whatever I was doing. But that's where I'm being brought back, because it's like I can't have amazing conversations like this if I can't gain a sense of control over my body's health and well-being. But artistically, when I feel like my head is so cloudy, I really love doing morning pages from like Artist Way. That's really important. So doing things like that, getting whatever emotions out of the way, uh, painting a lot of paintings at once helps. And then like some days I write poetry every day. I think it's also important to have rest and relaxation in my day as well. Like I feel very, very fortunate that I can live the Amee life that I can when some people cannot. But um, I think the more people put attention on themselves, like their internal space, and addressing it, the universe will come to support and help you the the other end. And it works whether people are logical or not. Like it's just how it is. But yeah, if that makes sense.
I love that you said that you're not a very routine person, because I've actually lived my life very routine, especially when I was in the corporate world and I felt like I was very confined. And so I do follow a practice, especially early in the morning, because I do believe that the way that you start your morning practice is how your day is going to unfold. And then the rest of it is pretty much guided. But just like you, I like to start my day at least by 10 a.m. But I follow a very Ayurvedic way of living as well in the morning. So waking up, drinking my hot tea, meditating, moving my body. I actually, now that it's warm outside, I go outside and I ground myself. If I'm not out of the house, I'm usually barefoot. And I probably would live barefoot every single day if it was up to me, just because it gives me the opportunity to really connect with the earth, and it just allows the energy to flow through my body. But everybody has a very different way that they stay connected to themselves. So I'm really glad that you're finding that through nourishing your body properly, and that you tune in when you're misaligned. And that's one thing that's really hard to do, especially if we're in a routine where we're doing the same thing over and over again. We live in a society that believes that it's almost normal to feel pain in our body. And usually when we feel dis-ease, and it's not usually, it's always when we feel dis-ease in our body, we're not in alignment with what we're supposed to be doing, because we're not paying attention to what our body needs and doing the daily practices that we need to do in order. And I know it because I feel it in the pit of my stomach. I feel the fire when I'm misaligned, or when I'm not tuning in or paying attention or making the necessary changes. So yeah, that's really amazing. And we learn, as we evolve, our body needs something different every single day. It's going to be asking us, just because energetically things are changing, especially right now, things are shifting drastically, and we need to do the necessary tune in so that we can make the necessary changes that we need to make individually to make ourselves feel more grounded and aligned to ourselves. So you've given us so much words of wisdom already, but to end this conversation, what words of wisdom would you give to those seeking a deeper understanding of themselves in a nutshell?
In a nutshell,
You're like, I don't think I could do anything in a nutshell.
I yeah, you're right. I don't know if I can. What I think what hmm, just listen. To just listen. Like, listen to that part of yourself that is not defined by shoulda, coulda, wouldas. Like, to just listen to how you're feeling, listen um to yourself, like listen through writing, listen through drawing without judgment, to just listen and observe yourself without judgment. Um, I think that's what I would say.
That's, that's beautiful. And when you take the time to listen, the voice, that voice, that inner guide, that higher voice, um that gives you the right thing to do, that feeling inside of you, that gut wrenching feeling, that's not that fiery sensation. It's like that cooling sensation that is like, yes, this is exactly what
Yeah,
you're doing. And not worrying about people pleasing, what everybody else is going to think, but really what feels right for you. Because oftentimes we do ourselves a disservice when we're trying to people please and we're listening to what everybody else is saying and doing. But when we take the time to be still, when we take the time to just be quiet and listen, it really allows us to just do and be the very thing that we are supposed to do on this planet to fulfill our purpose. Oh my gosh, Amee, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. This was such a beautiful conversation, and it was definitely very inspiring for me, very healing for me, because I mean, oftentimes people think that the creators that are putting these platforms together have it together. But let me tell you that this has been a process that has been unfolding for me second by second, minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day, because I am now in a place of surrender and just allowing myself to do the very thing that my creator is asking me to do. And I will tell you that it's been very uncomfortable, oftentimes very painful. And just, I also deal with the self-doubt and that noise, but taking the time to really just quiet the mind and operate in stillness and just to listen to that voice, that guidance that's telling me, you know what, this is the right thing, putting on this platform for people to be able to share their stories, to be able to share their experiences, and to share, the beautiful work that they're doing. And so these conversations are being shared not only on YouTube, they're also being shared on my Cultured Society blog, which is www.aculturedsociety.com. I will be sharing the artist's information below in the description of these videos so that you have the opportunity to connect with them and get to know them, just so that you can be inspired continuously, because these artists, these creators are putting out so much beautiful work into this universe that are really inspiring the masses. And it may not seem like it to them, because oftentimes these people think that they're just ordinary people. But for me, they're so inspirational, which is why I have been guided to bring these people on and to have these conversations, because I need it more than ever before, and I know that this world needs it as well. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. I really just hope and pray that you will continue to join us on these conversations that need to be had moving forward. And I am sending you so much love and blessings today and every single day moving forward. We will see you soon.